on my stage a few years back at one of our conferences for the C-Suite Network, and we did a show that we call Executive Perspectives Live. I'm talking with Tom Edwards. He's a technology evangelist at Blackfin 360, and he's the chief marketing officer at Tripleclix, a gaming strategy agency and a futurist keynote speaker, a strategic consultant for some of the world's largest and biggest brands. And we got him right there in his gaming studio, gaming headquarters right there. In 2020, he was recognized as OnCon's Icon Top 50 Marketer. Wow, that's pretty phenomenal. And named a 2020 Professional of the Year for the second year in a row. I've never been named a professional anytime, anything. So that is phenomenal. In the category of marketing and emerging technology, that's where he's a professional, and it's clear. Tom Edwards, welcome to All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett.
Jeffrey, I'm so incredibly excited to join you again. Always enjoy the conversation.
We always have good conversations, and you've worked with some really great. Who was the company you were working with back then? Pretty big company, about four or 5 billion.
Yeah, it was Epsilon. Yeah, I was the chief digital innovation officer over there on the agency side of the business, and we got to know each other during our time there, and it was a fun conversation.
Well, that's a big company. Most people don't, about a $5 billion digital marketing, agency technology company. So let's talk about what brand marketers are doing to react to COVID. What are you seeing some of the reactions from brands right now?
Jeffrey, it's interesting. I talk to everyone from Omnicom to Publicis to the other holding companies to brand marketers. And there are kind of some consistent themes of everything that we're seeing. I mean, you're obviously seeing it come to life in television spots and digital and everything else. Yeah. It's advertising a shift from aspirational to being just more of a reflection of our daily lives. I mean, that's at the end of the day, it's moving from that idea of, oh, I want to influence how you feel towards this idea of being socially responsible. How can I provide value back to you as a consumer? And it's been a big shift. I mean, it happened so suddenly. So many organizations had to pull back campaigns that were going into market, like KFC and like Hotels.com, that had a lot of, the old normal as we would have it, that had to immediately shift as well. So it's been interesting.
And that's expensive. Most people don't know how expensive that is. First of all, the cutback, you still have the contract. So you've got those contracts. And if you miss that inventory, you might not be able to get it back. That's one thing. Second, you just look like an ass if you're running commercials that are flaunting or in face of what people, like car commercials could be a problem. I saw some car commercials that came on, and some people were saying, ooh, bad move. Sometimes you just don't have the time to be able to pull that stuff, do you?
Yeah, it's been incredible the speed at which some of this has come together. So how quick some of the responses started to happen once the pandemic really started to roll out across the country. You saw organizations quickly go in and change voiceover. You look at some of the car commercials for like Subaru and others that are offering extended payment. So immediately jumping into that. Now you see a lot of Zoom-based, panels that are showing up in commercials. So it's
Teams.
That's right.
I see Microsoft doing a lot with that. Yeah, it's very smart.
Yeah, very, very similar. So from that perspective, it's been really interesting. Obviously certain industries have been hit incredibly hard. Different brands have responded differently. But one of the really key things to consider is, I'm all about consumer behavior. A lot of when I talk about new technology and the adoption of that and all of those kind of core things, the key driver is what's the behavior that's driving the shifts and why do we need to change? There was a recent Edelman report, surveyed about 12,000 people. And it said that 71% of respondents said that if they perceive a brand as putting profits over people, they will lose trust in that brand forever. So the stakes are incredibly high because marketing budgets are normally the first to go in any type of, revenue decline. But in order to actually survive and thrive moving forward in the future, you have to be able to continue to invest. Consumers may not be buying right now, but they're definitely engaging. So that's a really key thing as marketers and businesses are evaluating the path forward for how do I actually adjust my business strategy. That's a key component. It's for certain brands.
But they are buying. So, to say they're not buying, and I know you don't mean that across the board. No. Look at Walmart. Walmart just reported, record earnings. Amazon is up. So they're buying in some places. Who are
Correct.
some of the brands that you think are doing a good job? I'll state State Farms and Popeyes. I
Yeah.
thought the Popeyes, unbelievable that they got their commercials moving that fast to show people with gloves, show people with masks, show how they were handling the food over. I don't know who's doing their stuff, and I used to know the CMO down there, but that was spot on. And then State Farm says we're going to give back $2 billion. You can't drive. So if you're not driving, you don't need your car insurance. And I thought that was a very big and bold move.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. There have been a number of cosmetic companies from Estee Lauder to MAC. Burger King's done some really interesting things. They've taken a lot of incremental small steps from doing DIY Whoppers at home through grocery store ingredients all the way up to understanding, they want to pull on the strings of delivery and mobile payment. So they did a QR code based advertisement the other day. But because they know people are going to engage, because their research showed that people are bored after a few weeks. So it's been interesting to see. There are people that have focused more on obviously the importance of the philanthropic side of it. There are people that are trying to provide value. And then you've got the organizations which are essentially completely shifting their manufacturing and supporting. You look at LVMH as one that's doing that as well.
I wonder, it's actually going to see, I think you're going to see a bigger adoption, especially for fast foods and restaurants, of the apps themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Paying with the app, you go through the line and then you got to hand your credit card and you don't want to take your credit card back and you want to like disinfect it immediately. It's like, okay, there's some of that kind of stuff. Frito-Lay's has a great commercial saying it isn't about the brands, but it's about people, which I thought was interesting. Do you think that brands should adopt this kind of social responsibility approach?
I think for now you have to. I think that as people are responding kind of to this disruption in life, it has to be very human in tone. It has to be about providing value. Like it's not about the brand, it's about the people. And basically going back to, again, I always look at the data side of it. I'm a quant guy. It said 77% said they want brands only to speak about products in ways that show they're aware of the crisis and impact on people's lives. So it's top of mind for everyone, but it's not always going to be that way. And that's the thing that, you really have to watch and evaluate. For now, it's about disruption and response. Moving forward, it's about, all right, there have been changes to our daily lives. How is that then going to be applied into new services, new offerings? That's why partnerships are going to be important, retooling digital strategy. All of those things are going to be incredibly important to consider to accelerate business to return to normal.
Well, speaking about return to normal, I need to take a quick break and I'll be right back after this message. And I want to talk about the customer journey because that new normal is going to flip this a little bit. So we'll be right back after this message. Hey, thanks so much. We're live on LinkedIn and Facebook as we are bringing you All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett right here on C-Suite Radio. C-Suite Radio, of course, the world's largest business podcast network, and we're excited to be a headliner on that network. And today with me is Tom Edwards. He is the Chief Marketing Officer at Tripleclix. We'll hear about that a little bit more. He's also a keynote speaker and a technology evangelist. Blackfin 360. I love that name, Blackfin. Sounds like a game, Blackfin 360. But anyway, right before the break, we were talking about the new normal and what it's doing to change that. So let's flip it a little bit. Talk to me about the new consumer journey. How are marketing or do they need to shift? Marketing channels need to shift as a result.
And Jeffrey, it's interesting. Just even looking at the word normal, like there are a lot of different kind of facets to that word, right?
Right.
Like normal tells us what is, but also what ought to be. So when you start thinking about it, you think about normal. Okay, that's traits of large groups. That's maybe it's an ideal. Maybe it's this functional thing that, we want to go back to it. But at the same time, we don't. We want things to be the same and different.
Normal's different for you than it is for me. I can guarantee you that. I can guarantee. You're a gamer. I'm not a gamer. Okay. My gaming's done with a shotgun or a rifle. Okay, that's my gaming. Right.
Nice.
And so for everybody a different normal. It's just. But I think if we keep it around the customer journey, because what we used to do. 20 years ago, we don't do today. What we used to do 2 years ago, we didn't do today. And I believe that today, days are weeks, weeks are months, months are years, right? And we're moving at a faster pace than ever before. And it's just going to accelerate the change we should have already had. to get to that new normal, whatever
That's
that is.
That's right. No, you're 100% right, as per the usual. So of course, one of the things I talk about in a lot of my talks is, how disruption used to be the new normal. Now it's about exponential acceleration and the role of intelligent systems and all of that. Putting that aside for just a second, when I think about how the consumer journey is evolving, and from a business perspective, how you work through it, it's number one now, it's adapting. You have to adapt to the current environment. You have to plan for kind of that unexpected. You have to really double down on the insights that are being created by how consumers are engaging, because they are engaging. And you have to kind of accept the fact that a lot of the past consumer decision journey is no longer going to be viable. Right? It's always been a little bit nonlinear over the past few years, but now it's even shifting even more so. And finally, it's planning for what's next. So for me, I like to focus on the core consumer need always, and then align that against your value of your products and services that you're bringing, redefining your core digital strategy, what that means every step of the way of kind of the consumer journey. And again, the role that data plays in defining an adaptive strategy, because that's really what this is. Moving forward, it's less about doing a media plan that is a year in advance. And it's really focusing in on kind of that real-time constant iteration. And that's honestly the role that AI is playing a lot across marketing right now as we see it. It's being able, whether it's looking at and taking large amounts of unstructured data and finding themes, perceptions, occasions about individuals, all the way through to the delivery of different marketing messages and aligning that kind of in real time. So the other part of that too is partnerships and developing new capabilities are going to be so incredibly key moving forward, because as we kind of adapt and we're reactive, we have to be able to pull in best-in-class partners. And that's where a company like ours, like Tripleclix, really thrives. We are subject matter experts in the gaming space and bringing brands and the world of gaming together. So
I want to ask you about that, because I think that's kind of an interesting thing. As I told you, I'm the first one to admit I don't know anything about gaming. Although, what was the name of that one real? I'm a voice in some big game. It's one of the biggest games in the world. I'm Thor in the game, and I can't remember. Hey team, go look that up again. It was the company. I'm going to remember it in a minute. It was a huge one. But anyway, I'm in that game. Tells you how bad I am about the game. Is this the new way that I can market my products, is in the gaming world?
The short answer is absolutely yes. But how you do it is where it differs. And I work very closely with a gentleman named Chris Erb. He's the founder of the organization Tripleclix. He worked at EA Sports for 10 years. He's the best in the business in aligning marketing and gaming together. And I believe you're going to have him on the guest here soon as well. A lot of what we talk about is that if you want to reach Gen Z represents 40% of consumers right now today. That's $143 billion worth of potential dollars that are out there. And 100% of the ones I've surveyed are gamers in some form or fashion. It's like, when you look at this, connecting with friends while gaming, it's second nature. I did a lot of research across generational cohorts, and what I found for Gen Z in particular, they spend 2.5 hours a day with on-demand content. A lot of that video game streams, an hour and a half a day gaming, 51 minutes a day with music. They're built to socialize, entertain, immerse themselves in these kind of virtual environments. And you're seeing it in these platforms. Everybody's heard of Twitch, well, hopefully. In 2019, there were 750 million hours watched. In 2020 now, there's been 1.49 billion hours watched. But Twitch isn't a gaming marketing strategy. It's an amplification channel. I see it all the time in quotes about a brand. Oh, I'm advertising on Twitch, so obviously I'm in gaming. There's a difference between authentically connecting with a gamer through access, exclusive content, all of that, versus advertising on a platform.
Yeah, shouting and vomiting up information and video and just product placement ain't going to cut it. It has to be used in a very transparent and authentic way, and that's what people got to start figuring this shit out. To make sure you're going to be authentic and going to be real and going to be. But nobody wants to be sold to. What we want to be is served to. We want to be served, and if you have a servant mentality, you're going to be successful. By the way, the game is Destiny by Bungie. So let me see if
that's honestly, Jeffrey, that is my favorite. I still play it since I've been playing since 2014. I get made fun of all the time by the team.
Listen to this voice. We're taking on fire. Move to the left. We're getting flanked. Move. I need more ammunition. Okay, you might recognize that. So I did those voices for them years ago, and I forgot all about the game. And they gave me the game, and I remember biggest launch of a game ever. Biggest launch of a game ever. It was huge.
Yeah, it's been a passion of mine now for going on 6 years, and I play it with my sons. It's a phenomenal game.
Paul McCartney did the score for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I got to meet him. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, come right back, and I want to talk about behavior that dictates technological change, okay? Hey, we're back again live on Facebook and LinkedIn as we're talking all kinds of things about how it needs to change. We're also getting in a lot more about the gaming side of the world and what it means for brands, but technology is driving everything. And of course, we're talking with Tom Edwards, keynote speaker, technology evangelist, and the CMO for Tripleclix. And listen, my question right now is coming from one of our fans, and it's Nick Kroll asked, please elaborate on behavior that dictates technological change. Well, behavior dictate, by the way, if you want to be good at marketing, capture behavior.
That's right.
You want to be good at marketing, you capture behavior. That's the key.
100%. Behavior is kind of the core driver for understanding how technology adoption is going to happen. For me, when I talk about behavior, I look at it through the lens of kind of three core areas. I look at technology that empowers. And what does that actually mean? For Gen Z, it's this whole idea of creativity. It's not about serving content, it's about creation and all of kind of the nuances that come with that. Then I look at kind of the exponential tools that can help accelerate that understanding of behavior, looking at AI, looking at companies like an Oculus 360, who I partner with closely for years to look at perceptions, themes, occasions. And then ultimately, how is that going to translate? What COVID has done, I read a New York Times article recently that it was really interesting. COVID has fundamentally changed how we internet. Like that was the literal headline. Usage is up 50 to 70%. The expectations and behaviors on how that's going to apply moving forward. You mentioned before about mobile applications and mobile payment and even changing the way we operate and work within a retail setting. All of these things are going to fundamentally shift. From my perspective, what all of this means is we're moving ever closer to the time when our environment is going to adapt to us versus us adapting to it. The technology then becomes the preference center of you, and that's how you begin to navigate the world. All of this has kind of been accelerated, and that's why you start seeing this convergence of 5G technology plus edge computing plus AI plus all the AR, VR, XR stuff that's out there. Everything's kind of merging together towards driving towards that. And I think that what's happened with COVID is that we're just kind of accelerating some of that adoption and normalcy associated with technology and how we use it.
Yeah, and we need bigger pipelines. I think that's the other thing if you decide that you need. And of course, everybody needs to upgrade the routers, upgrade all the technology that's associated. Now, I look in the back, and Jen Fleming, one of our people here, sent me a note. She says, I see a lot of badges in your background. So we can look back there.
Yes, right there.
How do you see the industry shifting that way and adapting with meetings?
It's really interesting. So obviously live events are big for you. They're big for me. Yeah. We thrive on being on stage and connecting with, the audience and real people. A lot of the research that I've seen, and I was just sent some information this morning, it's something around the fact that about 69% of marketers aren't comfortable necessarily even attending a live event in 2020 without some type of vaccine. And that's just the numbers. That's not my personal opinion. I'd love to get back up on stage as soon as it's, viable. But for now, that seems to be the reality. So I think what you're doing with shows like this, bringing people information that would normally be reserved for a conference setting, like you used to with Executive Perspectives Live or All Business Today. I mean, it's such a ginormous benefit for everyone out there that, we all have to adapt, and live events and live conferences and just the shifting of that is just another one of those byproducts of this.
Yeah, they're not going to go virtual. Let's don't use the word virtual. I don't want to use the word virtual. I don't think you can have an event in the same way you can have an event. No. So that's why I call them live casting, broadcasting, hosting a meeting, hosting a conference online isn't the same as doing it the way that we've normally done it. So as a futurist, what kind of technologies do you see coming that is going to impact the industries across the board? And what should we be looking out for, Tom? You've always been real good at predicting that. What should we want to look out for?
I've been really watching kind of a couple different technologies. One is technology that autonomously maps our environment. Because as we move forward, having a foundation to digitize the physical environments around us is going to be absolutely critical, because we're heading on this path towards simulation. So in my mind, as we're thinking about and evolving technology, it all kind of comes together. The dependency on the virtual assistant to become a proxy for you as an individual becomes a preference center that ultimately then can interact on the environment with the environment on your behalf.
Yeah. So give me an example. What do you mean by the environment? You mean the ecosystem, or do you actually mean
your physical? Yeah, your physical space can completely change. Think about it from a retail setting. You're a fan of, a particular entertainment property. For me, it's, I love Destiny. We'll stick with that because that's a common thing. I go into a retail store environment. My preference center already knows I have an affinity towards Destiny. If there's some type of major content drop that's happening this fall, or some retail event that kind of coincides, it virtually, the simulation within that physical space to then pull me into that world is something that I know is currently being evaluated across different entities.
You're going to do that to a phone, or what? You're going to have to do that. How? How are they going to know that?
So that's a lot of what I talk about too, is when are we actually going to move from the handheld mobile device towards our environment adapting to us? And to me, initially, it was based on a number of year of 2028. That's whenever we would move towards, you'll see over the next few years, there are a lot of patents that have been filed for smart contacts, for smart glasses. So the form factor to remove the dependency on the mobile device, someone's going to get there quickly. You see Apple with patents, Facebook, Google.
Well, we've already done, when I was at Kodak, we've done it with eyes. I mean, we could recognize someone and actually change based on whether they're a man or a woman, all those kinds of things we could do. We had smart cameras and cameras that would be able to pick all that up. So what you saw in Minority Report, it's there.
That's right.
It gets a little, I don't know, you have to find the fine line whether that's creepy or that's helpful, right?
100%. I 100% agree with you. I think that, the consumer privacy part of that should also be, a big concern. So you see what's happening with the California Consumer Protection Act and GDPR in Europe, and how that's kind of applying through everything. So you're seeing this kind of coming together of technology, data regulation, but also all these kind of enhanced experiences. It's going to be really interesting to see how it evolves over the next few years.
Well, I tell you what, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to having you back on the show, because we're finding all kinds of great things are going to be a part of that. And again, get back to that privacy issue. Folks, think about it. And I've said this before about, does it get creepy? Well, when you walk into your favorite restaurant and the guy knows what you like to drink and sets a drink on the counter before you even sit down, holy moly, that's a pretty good deal, right? And if, or your waiter knows how you like your steak, or how you like the fish, or where your wife likes to sit, is that so creepy? No, that's just getting to know you and serving you up well. So what's the difference? This just happens to be in technology, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it so much. We're talking with Tom Edwards, keynote speaker, technology evangelist at Blackfin 360 and CMO of Tripleclix. And thank you for joining us right here on All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett.
Jeffrey, always happy. It's always a pleasure to see you, my friend, and take care.